subjects and topics that we really all enjoy here.
Funding for local broadcast of MacNeil Lehrer has been provided by Norm Thompson Outfitters, an escape from the ordinary, located at Northwest 18th and Thurman, Southwest 4th and Morrison, and at the Portland Airport. And by PACC Health Plans, in the forefront of managed health care, offering a wide range of solutions for businesses both large and small.
Good evening. I'm Robert MacNeil in New York.
And I'm Jim Lehrer in Washington. After our summary of the news this Monday, we have excerpts from President Clinton's speech to the governors about health care reform, plus reaction to it from the governors of South Carolina, Vermont, California, and Oregon. Then Betty Ann Bowser reports on a death penalty case in Texas, and we close with the Richard Rodriguez essay about being Catholic.
New York Life is proud to provide funding for the MacNeil-Lehrer NewsHour. Yet another example of New York Life's wise investment philosophy. Funding has also been provided by PepsiCo. And by the Archer Daniels Midland Company. ADM, supermarket to the world. And by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and by the annual financial support from viewers like you.
President Clinton asked the nation's governors today to help him reform the health care system. He said he would offer a plan to Congress next month that would ensure health coverage for all Americans. He called for a system of managed competition and health insurance reforms, including massive cuts in paperwork. Mr. Clinton appealed to governors to assist in getting it through an overly partisan Congress. He spoke in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Everybody who says, well, this is just too complicated and it's too much trouble and it's too hard to think about, ought to consider the consequences of doing nothing. Doing nothing means more people lose their coverage, and those who don't will pay too much for their coverage. Doing nothing means that all those uninsured and underinsured Americans will be covered by vast outlays by state, local, and federal governments. The rest of us will pay more at the doctor's office, the hospital, and our own businesses.
We'll have extended excerpts from the president's speech with governor's reaction right after this news summary. Robin?
In economic news, the government reported today that output at the nation's factories, mines, and utilities rose 0.4% in July. The increase in the Federal Reserve's Industrial Production Index was the best in 5 months. AT&T announced it had agreed to merge with Macau Cellular Communications, the nation's largest wireless phone company. The $12.6 billion deal remains subject to regulatory approval. The two companies said they do not expect any job cuts as a result of the merger. Continental Airlines today announced it will cut 2,500 jobs by the end of this year and discontinue service on 9 unprofitable routes. The company emerged from bankruptcy in April, but has reported more than $24 million in losses since then.
The Bosnian Serb withdrawal from 2 Sarajevo mountaintops is not enough to prevent NATO airstrikes. That was the word today in Washington from State Department spokesman Mike McCurry. He said the warning to the Serbs would remain in effect until they ended their siege of the Bosnian capital. Bosnian leaders met in Geneva today and agreed on a plan for temporary UN administration of the city. The agreement came at the first face-to-face talks between the leaders in 2 weeks.
A federal judge in New York today denied a request for the release of Sheikh Omar Abdel Rahman and said his deportation should go forward. Followers of the Muslim cleric have been charged in the World Trade Center bombing and a plot to bomb other New York sites. The sheikh has denied involvement, but the judge said today he posed a danger to U.S. security. He's being deported for lying on his immigration papers. He has 10 days to appeal the ruling. The U.S. chapter of the Bank of Credit and Commerce scandal may have closed with the weekend acquittal of Washington lawyer Robert Altman. A New York jury found Altman not guilty of concealing BCCI's takeover of First American Bank shares, once Washington's largest banking company. BCCI was seized in 1991 for money laundering and fraud, and its collapse led to losses of $12 billion, mostly overseas. Federal indictments against Altman and partner Clark Clifford were deferred pending the New York outcome. It was considered unlikely that the government would now pursue the federal case.
The Hawaiian Islands are in the path of Hurricane Fernanda. The island of Hawaii is under a hurricane warning, and residents are stocking up on emergency supplies. Winds have been clocked at over 100 miles per hour. The hurricane slowed this afternoon, but it is still expected to pass near the islands. Rescuers in Thailand have discovered 5 women alive in the rubble of a hotel 3 days after it collapsed. At least 95 people died in the Friday tragedy. Rescuers pumped in oxygen for the women today, but so far have been unable to free them. Police have said the accident may have been caused by shoddy construction when 3 floors were added to the hotel in 1990. And that's it for the news summary tonight. Now it's on to health care reform, a death penalty in Texas, and a Richard Rodriguez essay. President Clinton's call to the governors on health care reform is our lead story tonight. Speaking in Tulsa, Mr. Clinton told the governors America needs to solve the health care problem now or suffer severe economic and quality of life consequences. We'll get the reactions of 4 governors right after these excerpts from the speech.
Back east where I work, consensus is often turned into cave-in. People who try to work together and listen to one another instead of beat each other up are accused of being weak, not strong. And the process is 100 times more important than the product. Beats anything I ever saw. And the people that really score are the people that lay one good lick on you in the newspaper every day instead of the people that get up and go to work, never care if they're on the evening news, never care if they're in the paper, and just want to make a difference. And so, I say to you, anything that you can do to help me and the Congress to try to recreate the mechanisms by which you have to function in order to do anything at the state level, and by which we have worked together here to move forward on a whole range of issues, I will be grateful for. This country has too many words and too few deeds on too many issues, and we can do better than that. Now, let's talk about the health care issue. Next month, I will outline a plan to Congress that will offer real hope for all Americans who want to work and take responsibility and create opportunities for themselves and their children. I think the elements of that plan ought to be as follows. 1, we've got to provide health care security to people who don't have it. That means not just those who don't have health insurance coverage now, but those who are at risk of losing it. 2nd, I think we have to have a system of managed care that maintains the private sector, organizes Americans in health alliances operated within each state, contains significant new incentives for prevention and for wellness and against overutilization, and that has a budget so that the competition forces should keep things within the budget, but ultimately, especially in the early years, there must be some limit. Third, there must be insurance reform. There has to be a basic package of benefits. There needs to be community rating. There has to be some opportunity, I heard Governor Wilson talking about this before I came out, for pooling for small employers. We cannot permit price differentials that exist today to get worse instead of better simply because of the size of the work units. Finally, in this connection, if we do these things, there will be massive cuts in paperwork, because you won't have to have every health unit in this country trying to keep up with thousands of different options and all the myriad complexities that flow from that. And finally, I think the states must have a strong role and essentially be charged with the responsibility and given the opportunity to organize and establish the health groups of people who will be able to purchase health care under the managed care system. There are a lot of people today that get a free ride out of the present system who can afford to pay something. I think there should be individual responsibility. I think every American should know that health care is not something paid for by the tooth fairy, that there is no free ride, that people should understand that this system costs a lot of money It should cost a lot of money. It ought to be the world's best, but we should all be acutely aware of the cost each of us impose on it. So I will say again, I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I am absolutely sure this is the problem that America cannot let go, that we cannot walk away from. And I am absolutely convinced that we can solve it if we can meet around a table without regard to party and listen to the facts and work through it. I am convinced of that. And surely we can do it without the kind of rhetoric and air-filling bull that we hear so often in the nation's capital. We can do it. Now, I miss you, I miss this, I miss the way we make decisions. I miss the sort of heart and soul and fabric of life that was a part of every day when I got up and went to work in the state capitol. Somehow we got to bring that back to Washington.
Now, what four governors think of what the president said? We have two Democrats, Barbara Roberts of Oregon and Howard Dean of Vermont, two Republicans, Pete Wilson of California, Carol Campbell of South Carolina. Governor Campbell, first, do you agree with the president's basic premise that the health care system needs reform and needs it now?
I think it does need reform. I think that we're wasting a lot of money. The states are being overburdened with the cost of Medicaid. There's a lot of cost shifting going on, but we have to find the proper way to reform it, and that's what the debate is all about.
You would agree with that, Governor Roberts? There's no debate about the need to do something?
Absolutely not, and I think that's why you've seen the states, one after another, taking this on over the last few years, as Oregon and Hawaii and other states have done, because it hasn't happened at the federal level. This is a national problem. It needs national attention, and I'm excited to see us moving in that direction.
Governor Wilson, you agree it has to be done?
Yes, we all agree that there's need for reform, and many of the things that the president was addressing today, and what was a very good definition of the problem, we think can be done, but done without mandates on employers. We are doing that in California. Many of the reforms he's talking about, we wholeheartedly approve, and in fact, we have put them into effect, but our concern is that we will see employers mandated to bear costs that, in the case of small business owners, they cannot afford, or if they are to be subsidized to avoid their being put out of business, then we ask where is the source of that subsidy.
We'll come back to that specific in a moment. Governor Dean, what about the president's second basic premise, which was that security must be the number one goal of reform, meaning that all Americans should not have to worry about that they're going to lose their health care insurance if they change jobs or lose their jobs or don't have jobs?
Well, I think that governors have a lot more in common supporting this plan than we do dividing us, although there are some disagreements. But principally, that is one of the things that I think we all agree on, that we have got to get ourselves into a situation where if you have a job, you're not afraid to change jobs and get a better job because somebody in your family has a serious medical problem. If you are working for a company that doesn't provide health insurance, you then have to figure out how you're going to provide for your family. And if you're only making $15,000 or $20,000 a year, you can't afford a $5,000 insurance policy. So what we need to do is make sure those who have no insurance are insured, but even more so, make sure that those who do have insurance no longer have to put up with 15% increases every year, no longer have to have huge deductibles because they can't afford to continue to pay 15 or 20% increases year after year after year. And small businesses no longer can afford to have those kinds of increases either. Under the Clinton plan, we believe that it's going to be possible to control those costs, and that's what this is all about, both at the state level and for the private sector.
Governor Campbell, do you agree with what Governor Dean said, that there's consensus among you governors that security, in other words, that everybody in America should be entitled to health insurance of some kind?
Well, I agree with Governor Dean on the fact that we have to have portability of policies so that people don't lose their jobs when they transfer, that we should try to access the system for all American citizens and legal aliens. There's an open question about illegal aliens that has not yet been resolved that some of us are very concerned about. So we have an agreement in principle on a lot of things, but a lot of the specifics are just not there yet.
But Governor Roberts, there are 40 million Americans now who do not have health insurance. Do you agree that everybody agrees that that's got to be fixed?
We don't fix that. We continue the cost shifting, and employers who are paying for their employees' health care insurance are not only paying for that, they're paying for the employer who's not insuring. The cost shifting is literally what's burying us in the country. And the problem with this debate, and we've done it in Oregon for 5 years, so we know what it means to go through this, is that people agree with the broad concepts, and then you try to get to the details, and I guess the devil's in the details, but we cannot let the details and the debate over those details stop health care in America, or we are literally going to end our ability to function, to compete, and the growth of health care costs will bury America.
Governor Wilson, is that a detail to you that people who do not have health insurance now should get it? I mean, should be guaranteed that regardless of all the job problems?
Is it a detail?
Is it a detail, or is it central to what you think should be done? In other words, you agree with the president on that?
Yes, we're all agreed on that. We disagree, I think, in how to achieve that. And what a number of us think is that most of what the president described today as desirable can be achieved for those who are employees of small businesses who have been priced out of the affordable health insurance market. It's not a universal approach to do it through the employees, but I think that if we're talking about that, you can have a voluntary system, as we have in California, as apparently they intend to have in Florida, but we don't think that it's essential that you have the mandates, and in fact, if you do, we have to ask the question, how are you going to keep these people in business? Are you going to provide them a subsidy? And if so, from what tax source? We instead say that for 2/3 of the people who are not now covered in California, a system that is market-oriented and voluntary and that doesn't cost taxpayers any money can achieve the kind of health care that the president was describing as not only desirable but necessary. Then for those who are not employed and those who are not covered by Medicaid, there does have to be another solution.
Governor Dean, do you think it can be done without an employer's mandate?
No, well, I'm interested in hearing what Governor Wilson has to say. I think the president was reaching out and trying to have a bipartisan approach today, and I think he wants to have a bipartisan approach. He made it very clear he does not want to see another situation like the budget debate, and I think this is a great deal for governors. Now, as far as the employer mandate, I believe the president's approach is correct. I believe that an employer mandate is the most efficient, cheapest way to get people in, but
why is it the cheapest, sir?
Because otherwise you've got to raise taxes to make sure that everybody's covered, and I think the president's plan is not going to raise taxes other than some sin taxes that might be needed to pay for some long-term care options.
Let me ask
let me just make very clear. What the president has said is this is going to be his plan. It's a plan that many of us will support. Some certainly have concerns, as Governor Wilson has indicated, but we all have got to sit down at the table with positive solutions that will work, and then we can sort through those, because this plan has got to be passed with both Republican and Democratic votes, and this is going to be the beginning of that process to discuss what is acceptable to both Republicans and Democrats in the middle, who represent the majority of American people who want health care reform.
Now, Governor Campbell, when you sit down at your table, wherever that is, are you going to sit down at the table opposed to employer mandates?
Well, I'm concerned about the small business employment of this country. That's where we create most of the jobs in America now. About 30% of all of our new jobs are coming out of small business today, and we're concerned whether there'll be an employee disruption. In other words, they will lay off people because they can't afford it. Now, the idea of subsidies for small business and employers to transition into this could lessen that chance. However, we'd like to know how that's paid for, because that hasn't been clarified yet, and I think that has to be clarified before anything takes place. But let me comment on another subject, and that is this term of 40 million uninsured. The highest figures we generally see are about 37 million. About 1/3 of those people, or a little more, are transitioning from one job to another. Now, we can work to get those people covered. You could extend a policy 1 month beyond the time that they leave employment, to give them a transition period, and you can pick it up under the unemployment system that we have, to have a co-payment system with them and keep them on a system. So we can take care of about 1/3 of those people without having to change the whole system in the country. Another, about a third of this group are young people in their 20s. They have an attitude they're going to live forever, and they don't buy insurance. Some of them can afford it, some of them can't. I happen to think that those people that can afford it in that group need to pay for it. We don't need to subsidize them. But we do have a hardcore group of about 15 million people or so that we really have to deal with, and this is the hardest group for us to figure out how to deal with equitably and how not to put a burden on the taxpayers and those that are paying in order to do so.
Is there any suggestion that you have heard from the White House, directly or indirectly, that you are just adamantly opposed to, or do you have an open mind on how to solve that particular problem, the 15 million, the problem that you just outlined?
Well, I have an open mind on trying to find solutions and to access the system. I think that we're in agreement on a lot of things. We need to get Medicaid under managed care, to get the Medicaid people out of the emergency rooms and to the primary care physicians. We can lessen costs there. We need to increase some efforts in the public health, in the clinics, in the hospitals to access it for a lot of other people. We have a lot of things that we're in agreement on. Our deep concern is that if we're going to come in and cover everybody, not defining who everybody is, with a plan that has not yet been defined what the benefits are, then we have kind of an unknown, and some of us would like to see all of these details before we say this is the proper way to go.
Let me just, if I may,
yes.
May I just say one word about, amplify what Carol just said. I think it's very important for us to concentrate on what we all agree on as well. I believe this is the best deal that governors, Republicans and Democrats, are going to get from Washington, or have seen in a long, long time. And what we all agree on.
Why is it such a, you've used that term before, why is it such a good deal for governors?
Because it is a state-based program. This is not a, let's run a national health care system from Washington and a big Washington bureaucracy that one size fits all. What's good for California is good for Vermont. This is a system that says, okay, we're going to have some national standards, a benefit package so it's portable all over the country, a financing mechanism so we're not competing with each other on an economic development basis because somebody charges a premium, somebody else has a tax. But then we get to design the development system within broad national parameters. That means that Pete Wilson can decide how to deliver care in South Central Los Angeles, Carol can decide how to do it in Greenville, South Carolina, and I can do it in Montpelier, Vermont. And that is very important. We have not seen that kind of flexibility in the federal program in a long, long time. And I think that's one of the reasons that governors in general are enthusiastic. Yes, we're going to have some disagreements over how to finance this. Yes, we need more specifics. But I don't think anybody should come away from this thinking the governors are badly divided. We want a state-based program very, very much.
Governor Roberts, would you agree that that's the key to it from your point of view as well in Oregon, that you want a state-based system? And what does that mean for Oregon?
Well, I think in Oregon, like other states now in the nation, the flexibility the president mentioned today is critical. If there is a framework where we can know that this is the benefit package, this is the parameter, and then you and the state figure out how to do it best for your people in your part of the country, that flexibility means that we can do cost containment better, that we can serve our people better, and that we won't have a situation where everything comes from, if you will, on high in Washington, D.C., filters down to the state level, and then we're caught in so much paperwork, we can't deliver the service. I mean, we mustn't ever forget that part of this process is we talk about all the details and all the bureaucracy. This is about ensuring millions of uninsured Americans, the people who have no way to take their kids to the doctor, no way to go to the hospital or surgery, and they go on and on without caring and do their final coverage in the emergency rooms of America.
But Governor, let me ask you, how in the world can you have a national program? I'm asking here, how can you have a national program if you have 50 different, if each state has a different system? How can you have one that is equal? So if somebody lives in Oregon and moves to the state of Washington, they don't have to redo their health insurance.
If the benefit package is standardized, and if the portability is part of the plan, and if there's a standard way to do that, then it really doesn't matter which state you do it in. And I think that's the thing we've never understood before. We don't want people moving from state to state to be able to insure their family. And I think that's what's happening now.
Governor Wilson, does that sound workable to you? Does that sound like that can work, that you could have a state-based system and a national system together and it all works?
It isn't quite clear to me yet how it does work. If it works as Governor Dean has just described it, I think we would all be very delighted with that system. But with all respect, I don't think that is necessarily the issue upon which we're divided. We all hope that's what occurs, But still the issue is, with respect to the small business owner who would like to find insurance and can't now find it because it's unaffordable, how do we include him and his employees? We say that there is a way to do that. It's a voluntary system. That is what we have undertaken in California. And it contains portability, it contains guaranteed issue and renewal without reference to pre-existing health condition, all those good things. The question is it going to be mandated upon people who can't afford it, or are you going to provide them a subsidy so that they can? What's the answer to that? The answer from the White House thus far is that they seem to be confident that they can achieve a mandate on employers that will nonetheless be affordable to them through cost savings. I have to concede that I am skeptical about that. I think that is assuming a great many optimistic outcomes. Yeah. And in the meantime, the question persists. We cannot, though, so burden small business employers that they have to close their doors, or we will not have benefited their employees very much.
Governor Campbell, you share that concern, do you not?
Yes, I do. I think that we have to be concerned about the impact on jobs in the country. We need to create access for people, but if we're creating access and destroying a job at the same time, we're not solving the problem, and I don't think that's the aim of the president or anybody else. So as we look through these details, I think what Governor Wilson was trying to say was, are we going to lead people in and build on something that's good, or in fact, are we going to force people into something that is untried? And this is a different strategy that everybody has to discuss. We think if we can get a good plan together, we can agree on. Governor Roberts talked about the portability factor, absolutely essential in any plan to have a portability factor so that we can have a minimum basic plan. We don't have that minimum basic plan defined yet. We don't know what it will cost. And until we begin to get some cost figures and deal with reality instead of concept, it's very difficult to talk objectively about everything that we have on the table.
Governor Dean, you spent a lot of time as kind of going back and forth between the White House and the governors. That's been one of you as a liaison, because you're a physician and you have special knowledge on this, and you're simpatico with the administration. Do you feel that these kinds of concerns that you and your colleagues, but particularly your Republican colleagues, Governor Campbell and Governor Wilson, have raised tonight, are they going to get a hearing in the White House, or is this going to be another one of those deals where there's a plan and the Democrats line up over here and the Republicans over there?
No, I think the president's made it very clear already that that's not his intention, that he wants to bring... Carol Campbell and I have sat with the president and Ira Magaziner and the First Lady for almost a year now, with Roy Romer and George Mickelson, before he passed away in that tragic plane crash.
Two other governors, yes, right.
That's right. And so we have had a bipartisan group working on this. We're going to continue that now that Carol's going to become the new incoming chair of NGA. The governor, the president knows...
That's the National Governors Association, right?
Thank you. I would try to avoid jargon in the future.
Right. Okay.
The president knows that he needs Republican support on this issue. Now, I'm very interested in hearing more about how the Republicans might finance such a plan. We need to hear lots of details from both the president and from other folks who are going to come forth. In the Congress, there will be a Republican plan advanced by Senator Chafee's group. We welcome that. We want to work with them. We understand this has got to be a bipartisan approach. And Governor Campbell and Governor Wilson are raising good questions. We believe we have the answers. We want to hear from them as well.
And we have to go. Governor Roberts, gentlemen, thank you all four very much.
Still to come on the NewsHour tonight, a death penalty case in Texas and Richard Rodriguez on being Catholic. But first, this is Pledge Week on public television. We're taking a short break now so that your public television station can ask for your support. That support helps keep programs like this on the air.
Good evening, I'm Jessica Martin with Oregon Field Guide, and welcome to OPB's August Membership Drive. Now, this is our third night of pledge this time, and what we're hoping for this evening is we want 300 calls, 300 pledges, this whole pledge. So you can help us out by calling tonight, where tonight we're hoping to get 35. So go ahead and pick up the phone and become one of the 35 callers tonight. Tonight you have the opportunity to have your voice heard in support of public television. Our award-winning MacNeil Lehrer NewsHour is just one of the many ways OPB serves the families of Oregon and Southern Washington with information, education, insight, and entertainment that's unmatched by any other network. Now, where else can you tune in nightly and not just watch news being reported, but watch the major stories discussed and probed by those people who are closest to them? Who else can you depend on to deliver the very best in news and public affairs, science and nature, the performing arts, you name it, children's programming? Who else but your public television station, Oregon Public Broadcasting? We're here because viewers like you care enough to pledge your support. Oh, good, I hear the phone's ringing. Keep going. Your membership in OPB costs just $35, only 10 cents a day. Where else could you get so much for such a small investment? The answer is simple. You can get that much value right here on OPB. Pledge your support now by calling one of our telephone volunteers from Quick Systems. Let's see if I can get this right. Sinfonia Concertante Orchestra, or the Affection Connection, and contribute whatever you can. If you're calling from Portland, the number is 245-2345, or for your convenience, we have a toll-free number for pledges coming from anywhere in our viewing area. That's 1-800-245-2346.
Hi, I'm Matt Miner. I take care of on-air promotions for OPB. Besides maintaining quality programs for your viewing pleasure, pledging gives you the benefits of OPB membership. One bonus that membership offers is your OPB membership card. This card entitles you to discounts and free admissions to concerts, museums, and theatrical events all around the state. You'll also receive 12 issues of OPB's monthly program guide, Oregon Focus. It contains our radio and television schedules, along with plus codes and descriptions of major series. Both are yours with your yearly $35 contribution.
Hello, I'm J.J. McKay from the Affection Connection. But if you can contribute more than $35, all the better. With a contribution of $120, that's only 33 cents a day, OPB's thank you will be a gift of this wonderful plush Barney the Purple Dinosaur Puppet. Hi, Barney. Hello, J.J. Just maybe you can think of someone in your family who would really enjoy one of these. And let me say, too, that if the phones don't ring, I think Barney might have a song in him. By the way, for a $60 contribution, we'll send you an Oregon Field Guide coffee mug, or for your pledge of $60, you'll receive this Oregon Public Broadcasting sunshade for your car, like now's the time we need it. But the numbers are simple to remember. And remember, if you're calling from Portland, the number is 245-2345. From anywhere else in our viewing area, all of Oregon and southern Washington, call toll-free 1-800-245, wait a minute, Barney, they're not ringing. Please call now, 1-800-245-2346.
Well, Barney's right. You know, pledging is easy. Just call. We'll ask your name, address, and a few other pertinent items like the level you're joining at, whether you're a new or renewing member, and if you'd like to put that pledge on your credit card. Pledging is easy. The hard part is walking to the phone and dialing the numbers on your screen. Now, we can't do that for you. That's your decision. But right now, run through your mind the programs you've watched. Do they mean something special? Have they opened your eyes to someplace new? Have they explained a question you have? If OPB has done something different and the other stations haven't, then isn't this kind of TV worth paying for? With that in mind, getting up and going to the phone may be the easiest part of pledging. And you can do that right now. Now, I've been hearing the phone rings, but I know we don't have 35 calls yet for this break. So go ahead and please keep calling. We really need your calls. Again, in Portland, it's 245-2345. Elsewhere in Oregon and southern Washington, wherever you're watching, call toll-free 1-800-245-2346.
A lot of people don't realize it, but 49%, just under half the money we need to run OPB, comes directly from you. Contributions. Money needed to bring you the quality programs you see on Oregon Public Broadcasting. You and your support are essential to maintain the schedule you watch and obviously enjoy on OPB. Your pledge helps assure that OPB will thrive and continue to be available to over 90% of the state, everywhere in Oregon. Your membership ensures that OPB will be there for you every time you turn on your TV. Think of your pledge not just as an investment in quality television, but as an investment in the continuing enrichment of your life.
Hello, I'm Bill Moyers. For over 20 years, for a third of my life, Oregon Public Broadcasting has been bringing you exceptional programming like The Civil War, Sesame Street, great performances, Frontline, and, of course, Healing in the Mind. But we couldn't do this at Oregon Public Broadcasting without your support. You are the public in public broadcasting. Now, we need your support in the form of your moral commitment and your financial commitment to keep Oregon Public Broadcasting bringing you this outstanding programming that truly makes a difference in all of our lives. There's a number on the screen right now. That number is directly related to our need and your response. If you'll call that number and make your pledge to Oregon Public Broadcasting, well, when I'm 80 years old, I'll be back to thank you again and to ask you again, because you'll be keeping public broadcasting on the air.
You know, I hear that we need to get 20 more phone calls. You know what that means? What's that mean, Marty? I love you, you love me. Won't you pledge to OPB? It's horrible, but we really do need your contributions. Probably just like you, I depend on OPB for most of my news and information. The people at OPB are sensitive to that. In-depth news and public affairs coverage is expensive, but it's the quality you deserve. That's why OPB is committed to bringing you national programs like MacNeil Lehrer NewsHour, Washington Week in Review, and our own local radio and TV news programs. But without your phone call, your contribution, or in-depth news coverage just wouldn't be possible. Your membership dollars will help keep the kind of reporting you appreciate on the air. Call now, and you can keep programs like these on the air.
And now, let's rejoin the MacNeil Lehrer NewsHour, and thanks.
We'd like to thank Food and Bloom Catering, The Hand That Feeds You, The Kobos Company, Northwest Temporary Services Incorporated, Pepsi Bottlers of Oregon, and Colonel Pop's Popcorn of Portland Incorporated for their generous support of our August membership drive. Our telephone volunteers in the studio are from Quick Systems, Symphonia Concertante Orchestra, and the Affection Connection. They're here to help Oregon Public Broadcasting. Call one of them with your pledge of support. Or, if you'd prefer to mail us your contribution, send it to Oregon Public Broadcasting, Post Office Box 4373, Portland 97208.
Next tonight, the death penalty and the appeals process. Last week, President Clinton unveiled a new crime bill, and it included expanding the death penalty to include 50 new offenses. In addition, it would limit the number of federal appeals death row inmates could make. In Texas, one case has focused attention on the appeals issue. Gary Graham, who has been on death row for 12 years. He's scheduled to be executed tomorrow if a court lifts a stay of execution. Correspondent Betty Ann Bowser has our report.
There are more people on death row inside this Texas penitentiary than anywhere else in the country. 10 people have been executed this year alone. It's home to such notorious criminals as Henry Lee Lucas, who once confessed to the murder of more than 300 people. But the inmate getting the most attention right now is 29-year-old Gary Graham. Graham got the death penalty for murdering a man in a Houston parking lot 12 years ago. He admits to a crime spree that year, including a rape, 3 shootings, and at least 10 armed robberies. But he has consistently maintained he's innocent of the crime that landed him on death row.
There's a tremendous amount of evidence establishing and proving my innocence that the court simply refused to consider. And I think that everybody is outraged about the fact that no court in America has sat down and heard all of the evidence in this case.
Up until a year ago, it looked like Graham would be executed by lethal injection. Then his lawyers found new witnesses they say could prove he's innocent. And they found Hollywood.
Danny Glover. Good morning to you, my brother.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Good, good.
We need to motivate just even the common Joe on the street corner to make a move, to start writing letters.
That's exactly what's happening in terms of Gary's case. There's been such a groundswell of support, from all over the community.
Actor Danny Glover is the star of a media blitz aimed at getting Graham a hearing on the new evidence. The campaign has propelled Graham's cause onto the pages of national newspapers and magazines and onto network television.
There is a room in Huntsville Prison where Gary Graham will spend his last hours.
Glover has been embraced by the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and Amnesty International. Together, they recently went to Washington on Graham's behalf. speaking to the Congressional Black Caucus, visiting congressmen, and doing TV appearances.
Why did you get involved in the Gary Graham case?
Well, first of all, I believe in his innocence.
Glover says Graham's death sentence is fraught with racism. But Bernadine Skilleran, the single eyewitness on whose testimony Graham was convicted, says no.
I do not believe that. I believe that the facts and my seeing Gary Graham and coming forward and telling what I saw is what caused him to be found guilty, and the jury listening to the other phase of his trial that caused him to receive the penalty that he did. It's not a racial issue. It's a right and a wrong issue. The man shot and killed someone, so he had to be tried and punished for that.
But Gary Graham has become more than a story about guilt and innocence, of which witnesses to believe.
What do we want? Justice! What do we want?
Yeah! In Texas, it has escalated into a showdown between Graham's supporters and some members of the Texas legal establishment. At issue, whether millions of federal tax dollars are being misused to save inmates like Graham from execution this week. Finding good lawyers to represent death row inmates became so difficult that in 1988, Congress set aside money to establish legal resource centers. Today, there are 19 such centers around the country that cost taxpayers $18 million a year. Their mandate? Recruit good attorneys to handle death row appeals. Eden Harrington is executive director of the Texas Resource Center.
Texas has the largest death row in the country. It is the only state with a sizable death row that does not have both a well-funded public defender system that ensures that people are fairly represented at the trial level, and also it's the only state with a large death row that does not provide and compensate counsel for state habeas appeals.
Prosecutors across the state agree there is a need, but many of them don't like the tactics used by the Resource Center. Roe Wilson is assistant district attorney in Harris County, where Graham was convicted.
They have in the past misrepresented things to trial courts, to trial judges. They have attempted to intimidate witnesses. They have attempted to visit jurors and to get jurors to say that their verdict was incorrect. They have visited co-defendants who have been convicted of lesser offenses and attempted to get them to untruthfully state that they alone are responsible for the entire offense, so that the defendant who was convicted of the capital murder would be absolved of any blame in it.
Harrington vigorously denies all such allegations. She says Wilson and other prosecutors' complaints are motivated by self-interest.
Since the Resource Center is established, the prosecutors have been forced to confront the fact that vigorous defense attorneys expose illegal conduct by prosecutors as a regular course of doing their job. And they don't like that. The district attorneys had everything their way. And I think that that's really the root of this, is that the prosecutors are not pleased that defense attorneys are exposing the problems with the system.
Mike Tiger, a University of Texas law professor and chairman of the board of the Resource Center, says the criticism reminds him of the slurs endured by civil rights workers.
It's a little bit like the summer of '64 when the lawyers from the North came south. They, too, were called carpetbaggers, intermeddlers. They were threatened with disbarment. Judges excoriated them. We're living through the same thing.
Is this normal?
But Texas State Senator Jerry Patterson says what's different now is that government money's involved. He is compiling evidence that he says will show that money is being misused.
And y'all are a non-profit corporation, and by law you have to provide those records, and we're here to look at them. Pardon? Well, I'd like a response today.
She's
I'd
not
like a
available
response
right
from
now.
Ms. Harrington today.
Patterson wants to see the books at the Resource Center, and under Texas law, he recently demanded just that.
I'm sorry.
She will not come down here and talk to us.
She is unavailable.
She is
right now.
unavailable to come down here and face my request for her financial records or the financial records of her agency. Is that correct? She does not even want to face me and listen to my request.
No, it's not that she doesn't
Well,
want
then
to.
I'll wait.
Well, you can wait, but she is not available today.
Patterson is particularly irked that the Resource Center has this man on the payroll as a, quote, clemency consultant, when he also handles public relations with the press in the Graham case.
I think basically this agency is a full employment agency for death penalty opponents. That's all it is. It's a bunch of attorneys, young attorneys, who are zealous, and that's good, but this is a way for them to make money and pursue their own personal political agenda and not do a very good job of it because of lack of credibility.
The personal political convictions of lawyers about anything, I don't care if it's abortion, the death penalty, whether they're Democrats, Republicans, or anything, ought to be irrelevant to the question of federal funding. And indeed, I think the Supreme Court of the United States has so held over and over again. That's called the First Amendment. That's number one, before you get to 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Victims' rights groups increasingly are exercising their First Amendment rights, organizing themselves into a powerful political force in Texas.
Sooner or later, we're going to make sure the criminals spend their time behind bars and not on our streets.
In Houston, there are at least 10 different groups.
This is Andy Kahn out of the mayor's office.
Houston even has a former parole officer assigned to City Hall full-time just to deal with the problems of crime victims.
You're seeing the whole state of Texas basically arise from their slumber and saying that we're not going to take it anymore. There's only one crime that a victim cannot recover from, and that is murder. And one way of guaranteeing that that murderer will never commit another crime is the imposition of the death penalty.
Kahn understands why one victims' rights group recently smashed videotapes of Danny Glover movies to express resentment over Hollywood's involvement in the Gary Graham case.
I think they should stay in Hollywood. That's something that they probably don't know all the facts of the case, and I feel like they've only seen one side of it.
Stephen G. and the rest of these people all have a relative who was murdered, and they believe organizations like the Resource Center are nothing more than a front for the anti-death penalty lobby.
The criminals do have the money because they have the backers and people backing them. We victims don't have anybody looking after us. We have to look after each other.
2 of Linda and Jim Kelly's children were shot to death in the family-owned pawn shop in 1988.
All the time they're allowing enough time for their agenda to get known, to get more support and get help. It's more important than Gary Graham. Gary Graham means nothing. Nothing. That's their deuce card. If they can get him off, they can get anybody off.
Why the anger? These cases cause pain and anguish in the community. Most capital cases involve serious, horrible crimes. These crimes are controversial, sometimes just in the community and sometimes across the whole of the nation, as the Gary Graham case indicates. You look at the fact that claims of innocence which have been sustained just on the eve of execution is not something that never happens. It's something, indeed, that often happens, all too often. We face a process in trouble. The center's lawyers are doing their best with limited resources.
The future of funding for resource centers will ultimately be decided in Washington, where Texas Congressman Jack Fields is threatening to lead a revolt.
My constituents do not want their hard-earned tax dollars used to pay for the endless legal appeals of murderers, rapists, drug kingpins, and others who are seeking to avoid the penalties to which they have been sentenced.
Now, with the president on record favoring a tightening of the whole appeals process, time for death row inmates like Gary Graham may be running out.
Finally tonight, the coming of the Pope to Denver prompted some thoughts about Catholicism by essayist Richard Rodriguez.
Look at their faces. Young people have come to Denver from all over the world, come to see Pope John Paul II.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, of the Holy Spirit, I say you good morning.
But the majority of these children are your neighbors. Here are kids who bag your groceries at the supermarket, kids you hire as babysitters, kids who go to school with your kids. But here are children of an odd marriage, Americans who also are Romans. As a Roman Catholic, I've always sensed the Protestant character of the United States. America is a country of the first person singular pronoun. What the Puritans gave us was a faith in individualism, a faith that survives even today as America grows more secular, more pagan. In America, Jehovah's Witnesses have been jailed, Mormons have been persecuted, Jewish temples have been vandalized. And God help you if, like those people in Waco, you belong to a religion that other Americans considered a sect. But when Americans have been true to our civic Protestantism, Americans have been a people of religious tolerance. The Puritans taught us the right of each to worship his own God. Many Americans must find the spectacle of a papal visit grotesque, the old man gesturing from his popemobile. Occasions like this, these crowds strike me as profoundly Catholic. With Protestantism as a religion of the I, Catholicism is a religion of the we. Catholics believe that we do not pray alone. Catholics need the community of the Church, the assistance of saints and the Virgin Mary, the teaching authority of the Pope and bishops and priests, centuries of tradition. Catholic countries serve better food than Protestant countries, have sunnier plazas. Catholics are people of the family, people of the crowd. The Protestant genius is individualistic. Protestant countries have cleaner trains than Catholic countries and cleaner jails. And Protestant countries are more respectful of the rights of the accused. Last Thursday, when he arrived here in Denver, John Paul II was greeted by President Clinton. A diplomatic moment, the Pope shaking hands with the Baptist. Watching their meeting, I thought of the long argument Americans have had regarding Catholicism. Benjamin Franklin, for one, worried whether German Catholics could ever become good Americans. In the 1840s, when war was brewing with Mexico, the argument against allowing the Irish into this country was Catholicism. American nativists feared that the Irish would unite with their fellow papists, the Mexicans, and overturn the Protestant state. That does not seem to me such an unreasonable argument. As people of the we, Catholics are bound to be out of sync with a society formulated on the I. The trouble with the nativist argument, however, is that it doesn't account for the force of assimilation. Immigrant Catholics were Americanized. And so now, well over a century after the Mexican-American War, Pat Buchanan, that self-consciously Irish Catholic politician, wonders if perhaps we need a taller wall or a deeper ditch to protect us from Mexico. John Kennedy was cross-examined by Protestant ministers during his presidential campaign. Kennedy assured the ministers that he would not be governed by Rome.
I don't accept the view that my church would place the pressure on me. I don't think there's any evidence for that in the United States. The Constitution is very clear in the separation of church and state.
After JFK got elected, it was generally agreed by political experts that America's anti-Catholic demons had been put to rest. Among ourselves, however, we Catholics have never resolved the issue. What does it mean to be Catholic and American? Obedient to civic individualism, yet also to the belief that the individual is not alone before God. My friends who are priests in Rome tell me that the Vatican regards the United States as spiritually destitute, in moral terms, a third world nation. It is Africa and Latin America the Vatican depends on for Catholicism's numerical future and the source of her piety. In the Vatican's opinion, moreover, the American Catholic Church is on a par, say, with the Dutch Catholic Church, too independent, too inattentive to Rome. There looms a possible divorce. Liberal Catholics going in one direction, aligning themselves in the civic realm with the secular left. Traditional Catholics going in the opposite direction, aligning themselves with the evangelical right, as some recently have done outside abortion clinics, thereby paradoxically uniting Roman Catholicism and low church Protestantism. Look at these young people. Think of the America that has shaped them. They are Americans, as American as Jackie Kennedy or Madonna, but as Catholics they represent a culture, a creed, that has never quite meshed with the civic religion of America. What these young people know as Catholics, what the Irish cop on his beat knew before them, is that there are limits to individualism. American Catholics, torn between the we and the I, may end up teaching America that a single pronoun is not enough. But what else should we make of these last few days in Denver? Here, American kids abandon the solitary pleasures of summer to stand or to kneel in the sun together, sing together, because alone, the I is not enough. I am Richard Rodriguez.
Again, the major stories of this Monday. President Clinton asked the nation's governors to support his campaign for health care reform. And leaders of Bosnia's warring parties agreed to place the city of Sarajevo under temporary UN control. Good night, Jim.
Good night, Robin. We'll see you tomorrow night. I'm Jim Lehrer. Thank you and good night.
Major funding for the MacNeil Lehrer NewsHour has been provided by PepsiCo. PepsiCo. And by the Archer Daniels Midland Company. ADM, supermarket to the world. And by New York Life, yet another example of New York Life's wise investment philosophy. And by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and by the annual financial support from viewers like you.
This is PBS.
Funding for local broadcast of MacNeil Lehrer has been provided by Norm Thompson Outfitters, an escape from the ordinary, located at Northwest 18th and Thurman, Southwest 4th and Morrison, and at the Portland Airport. And by PACC Health Plans, in the forefront of managed health care, offering a wide range of solutions for businesses both large and small.